Welcome, Dolphins fans, haters, and everyone in between to your favorite show, discussing the greatest franchise in sports, the Miami Dolphins. This is the PhinsPod. My name is Moose, your host, and the offseason has started in earnest after some OTAs, and the team has now begun some real, true football activities, as minicamp is now underway. But unfortunately for the Dolphins, there was an absolute monsoon in Davie on Tuesday, and regardless, the Dolphins powered through and managed a pretty lively practice. A practice where Tua threw many an interception, and as most would expect, frustrated and panicked Phins fans think that this is a sign that Tua just ain't it. And as per usual, that generalized statement based off such a specific event, it's hyperbolic. And we're going to touch on that as well as Tua's bounce back Wednesday performance. But first, we got a few nuggets and notes regarding the team's activities over the last few days. God, I missed y'all. Let's dive in.
Tua didn't help his cause today after throwing 5 interceptions in the rain on the very first day of Dolphins minicamp, okay? Important to remember all of those things. This comes on the heels of Dan Marino saying Tua has all the talent in the world and is hoping for a Super Bowl run soon. But Fox makes the Dolphins a slight underdog to make the playoffs after narrowly missing out last year. Clay, will Tua lead Miami to the playoffs? What do you think?
Well, prior to the 5 interceptions, my answer is going to be yes, because if you saw the videos of Tua running around on the field, he looked like he was 100% healthy, which I don't think was the case last year. There's no Ryan Fitzpatrick that can come in to rescue him or be looking over the shoulder now. The Miami Dolphins go as Tua goes, and I do like the value on them to make the playoffs.
Let's kick things off with some bad news, the worst of it. Dolphins all-star cornerback Xavien Howard appears to be holding out as he has not shown up for minicamp thus far, and the reason is pretty clear. And look, the move of not showing up, it does make sense from his perspective. He is the best corner in the league, and he's not even the highest paid guy at the position on his own team. That's not going to sit well with a competitor as great as Howard, a competitor who has brought his game to the top of the league. Yeah, you're going to want to be highly paid at the position, let alone the highest paid guy on your own roster. So what can happen here? Well, a lot, unfortunately. The likeliest scenario is Miami and Xavien's agents come to some agreement where they bump up his yearly salary, perhaps increase the guaranteed total. That would allow both sides to get what they need. Miami gets a lockdown corner that they drafted, they developed, and they get him for years to come. And Howard, once again, feels comfortable and motivated to put his best foot forward. That's a win-win, and I think Flores knows that. Remember, we've talked about the way Flo likes to play defense before, and we'll touch on it again. The secondary is the backbone of his defense. Having guys who can cover and match up in a multitude and variety of ways and against various formations, that's key in running this scheme, throwing confusion to the offense. And the only way Miami can get away with that confusion by sending crazy blitzes on unpredictable downs without fear of getting burned over the top, it's because you have a guy who is locking it down for you on the back end. And when you have that guy, it allows you to do so much more on the front end of the defense. You can mix up your coverages, your shallow coverages. You can disguise your defense and your blitzes much better, as well as ruin an opposing offensive coordinator's night with wild blitz packages, mixing up defensive linemen, of course, but linebackers, safeties, corners, combinations of all of them. Miami can be that multiple because they can depend on a guy like Xavien Howard on the outside locking it down, giving them that flexibility on the short end. And for that simple reason, you know Brian Flores wants to make this work. And that's scenario number one, what I think to be the likeliest scenario, but we have to be realistic. This is the NFL. Wild things happen, and we don't know how Howard's camp is coming at this or how the Dolphins are approaching it. If things go sideways, and they always can, and relations get soured, I mean, we've seen it before, Howard could get traded. Again, that's less likely, but if Miami does move on, then the selection of Noah Igbenogany does make a little bit more sense. Personally, I think Miami should give the guy a little bit more dough and just make sure that he sticks around. As someone who has watched his development year in and year out since he was drafted by Chris Grier in 2016, 38th overall, remember, the Baylor product has refined his game. He was raw coming out of college. That's buzzword coming out for draft prospects. This guy's really raw. But the thing is with raw prospects is that if they do pull it together, and when they pull it together, you get elite athletes at the NFL level who not only have all the talent in the world physically, but have now been able to adjust with that mentally, and now they are hard to stop. And that's what happened with Xavien. He wasn't a concern physically. I mean, he knew he was big, long, tall, lanky, strong, could press, could jam. He could do it all. He was also pretty fast. He could shadow. The problem was, well, are his instincts there? Will he be able to adjust to the speed of the game? And look, he has. Howard has the speed, and not just high-end top speed, but short space burst, explosiveness, and quickness when it comes to shadowing receivers. These are all things that he has worked on and improved on. But the main thing that's gotten better and better is the instincts, his instincts of a true ball hawk. His feel of the game is just ridiculous, and it almost seems like the ball floats in the air just a little bit longer when it's thrown against him. You're like, wow, I swear to God that was easier to pick off, or I guess that's just the way Xavien makes it look. Personally, I got one thing to say, Miami, pay the man. But if what he's asking for is ridiculous, hopefully Xavien is being reasonable and things work out, but if not, Miami should look for some solid return. I mean, it is an all-pro corner. And if things do go that badly and Howard does get moved, Miami is no doubt going to have to, unfortunately, downgrade overall defensively. How could they not? You're losing such a talented guy. You're going to get worse. And that's something that obviously I think Flores wants to avoid at all costs. And one way in which the Dolphins defense did not downgrade defensively, and another reason for why I think the Dolphins will make things work with Xavien Howard, was the other piece of news that came out. And the Dolphins agreed on a 3-year contract extension for fourth-year linebacker and homegrown talent Jerome Baker, worth $39 million, $28.4 million of which is guaranteed. So in essence, Baker, who has proven to be a pretty good force in the blitz game, his combination of speed and strength is hard to find at the linebacker position, and he's consistent enough tackler overall where he's not really a liability in the middle, even on running downs. Moreover, Baker easily replaced Raekwon McMillan for a simple reason, right? He can cover. Baker can match up with opposing teams' running backs. They're more mediocre tight ends. High-end tight ends is still obviously tough. It's tough for Eric Rowe, so it's going to be tough for Jerome Baker. But sort of standard, second, third string tight ends, or, mediocre to below average starting tight ends and running backs, Baker matches them up. Baker takes him out. He isn't a straight-up defensive back out there, but he does hold his own where he needs to. And considering that Baker was still under contract this season, albeit at a $2.5 million salary, he is signed with Miami now for 4 more seasons at a $41 million cap hit. So essentially about $10.25 million per year. He is now a top 10 high-paid linebacker. Is it an overpay at this moment in time? Yeah, maybe. But he's only been good for 1 season, which is why I say maybe. But normally, when you do sign someone, you want to also sign them for projection. You don't want to sign them for past production. You want to sign them for future projection. And he's been in this program the entire time. Even before Flores came in, Baker earned the respect of not only the coaches, but the front office too. And he did that in another regime, and he's done that in this new regime. And with that in mind, if the Phins think he's going to continue to get better, then this deal is going to look damn good for the team real soon. We're going to see. It's good to see us starting to draft, develop, and retain some of our own talent. That's a pipeline that we have struggled with developing. So this is something new, and it's good. We want to see this. Draft the guy, develop him, make him fit in your system. There's a reason you drafted him, and the way you're developing him is making him a better player, and now he's up for a contract. Retain him. Homegrown talent. That's how you build consistent winners. And it's going to make winning big. Once we get there, it's going to make it taste all the sweeter, in my personal opinion, because it shows that the team builders seem to be picking good prospects to build the team with. You're building it on your own. It's not the NBA where you're just paying guys like KD, Kyrie Irving, hey, come on, join us. We need to go to the playoffs. No. You got to do it right in the NFL. You got to manage your money. You got to draft well. You got to develop well. And it's great to see the Dolphins starting to have some semblance of that, which I think this extension for Jerome Baker proves. Now, let's see you pay Mike Gesicki. Pay that man, and then we'll talk about that on an episode very soon. But he's next up. Obviously, Xavien Howard is more pressing at this point, but Jerome Baker is part of that same draft class as Mike Gesicki. They're due. Reporters were also given access to the team's practice on Tuesday, and they were treated to some wet-ass conditions. And I don't know if you've seen any of the video from earlier this week, but it was incredibly rainy and windy. Definitely not ideal football playing conditions. Regardless, similar to how his mentor before him did when it snowed or rained up north. Head coach Brian Flores kept his guys out there, and they worked. They worked hard. Guys made plays. The beginning of some long-term connections started to take shape. Will Fuller, Tua, Jalen Waddle, Tua. But remember, it was day one of minicamp, just day one on Tuesday. It is June. The guys are working. We can start to actually judge their performance come training camp and leading up to the regular season itself. Guys are shitting the bed in preseason. Guys are looking like they're zombies in camp. That's when you can really start judging the roster. But for now, in June, things are extremely fluid, and practice should not be looked into for anything more than what it is. Do people know that? No, of course not. Not when they heard that Tua Tagovailoa threw 5 freaking interceptions. And okay, I don't want to spend too much time on this because on Wednesday, it seems like he lit it up, and we'll get to that in later episodes. But I think most people aren't worried after just one bad practice in these conditions. I think most of you heard he threw 5 picks. You were like, ooh, that's not great. But the second you saw the conditions and heard that, they were told to be more aggressive, you were probably like, oh, that makes sense. I mean, it is mini camp in June, and the weather's horrible, and they are probably testing the limits of what they're capable of. They haven't built any chemistry whatsoever. There's miscommunication. We always know that the defense is ahead of the offense when things are starting. But for the select few of you who think that this, performance, 5 picks, has any bearing on the season itself, and I know that you guys are out there, let's have a quick chat. And usually when you practice, in any sport, if you played a sport, even, you're studying for an exam, right? The coach or the teacher is going to ask for certain outcomes. This is your weak point. Focus on this. We want to focus on this. This isn't the actual test or exam. This isn't an actual game. This is practice. So we're going to ask for certain outcomes. And for example, if we're talking football specific, you could either be working on specific plays during install. This is what we did last year. We got some new pieces. This is how we bread our butter in this offense. We're going to be focusing on these specific plays. Or perhaps you want your team to focus on the running game specifically and your blocking alignments. Make sure everyone knows that today is a run period. Or potentially defensively, they're focused on their defensive fits, making sure, hey, screw your block shedding, your tackling. We'll get to that later. I just want to see you hit the right hole. That could be a focus, right? Run, pass in practice. Maybe there is a specific directive. And from the mouth of Tua Tagovailoa himself, there was a directive for Tuesday's practice. Be aggressive. Passing-wise, be aggressive. Test the limits. See what you can fit in what windows, and when. See what's really going on with your offense and defense and where you stand. And this is the exact time to do that. Mid-June. Tua said so himself. They pushed it downfield, knowing it would lead to way more interceptions and turnovers, but that was okay because they can use this practice and this time as a stepping stone to build off of. Relax. The 5 interceptions in practice do not mean much in the grand scheme of things. Relax. Oh yeah, did we mention that the weather was absolutely atrocious? Not only was Tua himself dealing with a wet ball, but so were the receivers. Visibility was impacted. And, to put it bluntly, the weather favors the defense. When it's raining, snowing, it's hard to move the ball through the air. That favors the defense. And look, it doesn't hurt that the defense that the offense was going against was top 3 last season and should still be a force. Makes sense that an absolute flood would help force some turnovers. But don't worry. Let's let the team work and get better. Have faith in the decision makers and the coaching staff. Don't forget, your Miami Dolphins just had a winning season. A 10-6 season. Damn good. We don't have that too often. 10-6 seasons, that doesn't happen a ton around here. And so we're building this thing, and as you all know, I personally trust in Tua, at least to help keep the ship afloat, if not do greater things. But we'll get to that when we get to that. For now, let the people panic over a 5-interception practice performance in the rain during a minicamp practice on June 15th. Let them worry. I mean, in Wednesday's practice, Tua absolutely balled out, according to multiple reports. threw a lot of deep touchdowns. Even Jakeem Grant made an appearance. So should we now feel as if he's locked in for the MVP? No, of course not. It's just practice. But we'll talk about more, grand scheme minicamp things in later episodes at the end of this week and going into next week. But what you're hoping to see during this phase of the offseason is just a building of comfortability between players and their playbooks. Tua must perform at 100% mentally this season, not just make sure he's 100% physically. He's got to be there mentally, knowing the playbook, having command of the offense. Remember, he admitted to not knowing the playbook as intimately as he should have, and this time of the year is where you fix that. This is the time of the year that he was sitting last year in front of a laptop over a Zoom chat trying to learn the defense. Now he's able to throw a 5-interception practice because he is trying to throw it a touchdown on every single play. He's trying to push the ball downfield. So this is the time to improve and make those mistakes. And lastly, moving on from that unnecessary topic, the Dolphins continue to try and improve at every level of their roster as they signed classic former Patriots offensive lineman Jermaine Eluemunor after waiving tackle Timon Paris. And Eluemunor started 8 games for the Pats last season, so his availability this late in the game is kind of surprising. I mean, he is limited as an athlete, but his versatility in playing either tackle or guard makes him potentially valuable. And we've seen that with the Brian Flores regime, and as years have kind of gone further and further in this regime, it's clear that other than, centers, they like their tackles to have flexibility to guard, their guard to have flexibility to tackles. So it's not surprising that Eluemunor was added. But with all the signings that have been made, and you can assume a guy like Larnell Coleman, the 7th-round pick out of UMass, a guy like him makes the practice squad with probably a few other undrafted free agent rookie offensive linemen. They're going to be on the practice squad. But the odd guys out, the veterans, the guys battling for only 1 or 2 spots, it appears to be our guy Jesse Davis, recently signed Eluemunor, as well as veteran DJ Fluker. I don't think there's going to be that much room on the offensive line, so it's good to see that those last spots are being duked out by veterans with experience in the league. May the best man win, and to be honest, like I said, it's a much better area to be in with your offensive line, with these names, significantly better veteran names to be dealing with on the back end of your depth chart than we've had in years past. Before, we were trying to find starters who had any experience. Now we got 3 guys who, Eluemunor started 8 games. DJ Fluker started last year for the Ravens. Jesse Davis started last year for the Dolphins. And these 3 guys are fighting for a rotational, depth spot on the offensive line. Shows you how far the Dolphins have come in their roster management, which is great. But overall, how do you guys feel about Dolphins minicamp so far? Excited? Worried about Howard's contract situation? Worried about Tua's performance so far? Do you understand it's just practice and you're not worried? Let us know in the comments below.
The emphasis for us quarterbacks, we wanted to be aggressive today within the pass game. We wanted to see if we could fit throws in. We wanted to see, what throws we could make, under these conditions. And we were just trying to push the ball vertical down the field. There's some plays that didn't go our way, but that's plays that we can take a look at in the film room and move forward with. That's just been the emphasis for us coming out to this first day of minicamp, was just to be aggressive, push the ball downfield. Obviously you want to be smart, but if there's a time to make mistakes, now's the time to make mistakes. And we're just trying to see what we can fit in the hole, what we can throw within coverages. And come in the film room and then learn from it.
That's going to do it for us today. Thank you guys so much for listening to the PhinsPod. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you, as always, to Timothy Ritchie, member of the pod and supporter of the show on Patreon. Check that out. Links in the description, or head to patreon.com/PhinsPod. Thank you all so much for the continued support. And please remember to like the video if you enjoyed the show and subscribe just so you never miss a chance to chat about your Miami Dolphins. Remember that if you're listening on any other platform, Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, it's available there as well. Really appreciate a review and continue the conversation with us over on Twitter and Instagram at PhinsPod. I hope you all have an amazing day. And until next time, stay safe. Love y'all.